and welcome to another video. I hope that you had a wonderful Christmas or holiday and that you survived. I know that this year can be tough for some people, so if you are one of those, I'm glad that you made it out the other side. And I'd like to start filming again, getting back into it. So this is going to be another segment of everything you need to know about American Girl Customs. And I'm going to shorten that in the title so that these videos will be easier to find because it's such a long title. But today we're going to be talking about eye swapping, what you need, what supplies you need, what you need to know about eye swapping, and how to do it. Now, eye swapping in general is, you will hear a lot of people talk about the difficulty of eye swapping. And I'm not going to lie, it's not easy, especially at first. If you're a beginner, definitely don't do it on a doll that you really, really care about. Don't start on, I recommend not starting on a Jess mold or an Asian mold. Start with a classic mold or a Josefina mold. That is my recommendation. Those are, in general, the easier ones to start out with. Classic molds tend to just pop right out, especially when the plastic gets hot enough. So definitely start on a doll that's not super rare. Maybe one that's kind of beat up, TLC, because you don't want to accidentally ruin a doll that's really valuable or perhaps has a lot of sentimental value to you. So definitely, I don't know, just pick up a $20 TLC doll or $30 TLC doll and practice on that one for a while until you get really good at it. That's my recommendation, at least. Eye swapping can be really difficult at first, but I found that there's a couple of things that if you make sure you do, it makes it a whole lot easier. One of those things is getting the plastic hot enough, getting your water hot enough. I think at first I was afraid to really, really get the plastic super duper hot because I was afraid it was going to melt. American Girl plastic is super duper tough. It can take a lot of heat. So don't be afraid to get it boiling. I tend to use 1.5 cups of water. I microwave it on high for 3 minutes, and that is kind of perfect for me. Sometimes 3.5. And you want to leave it in for about 5 minutes. And the plastic, the head, should be very hot to the touch. It should be uncomfortable to handle. And if you get to that point, you're going to have an easier time doing an eye swap. So with all of that in mind, let's go ahead and introduce you to the doll we're going to be doing the eye swapping on. This is a poor, very TLC Molly McIntyre. She has one hand that has been chewed on, as you can see. So that needs to be replaced. And then she has, obviously her hair is super duper dry, super duper short. Someone had a field day with it. I don't know if you can see, but her face is covered in some kind of film, probably just dirt, grime. Her eyelids the paint has been stripped away. There is remnants of red on her lips, so someone maybe tried to do a custom, changed their mind a few times, and then decided they didn't want to deal with it, and then sold her as is. I don't remember what I paid for her, but I don't think it was much. So her eyes are unfortunately ruined. There is water damage. I can see that the irises are starting to separate. At that point, there's really not anything you can do to save them. Now, side note, if you do have silver eyes, there is actually a market for selling them. Some people really like them. Some people collect them. So don't just toss them. If you have some silver eyes on hand from dolls that have aged or perhaps have water damage, try selling them because honestly, they sell, people buy them. I don't like to throw things away if they have value. So if you have eyes that perhaps you think are no good anymore, You might be surprised. Someone might want them. Um, the wig, unfortunately, I don't think anyone's going to want at this point. It's so dry. It's so damaged. It's so short. It just needs to come off and be pitched. So without further ado, let's get to the eye swapping process. So to start out, you are going to want your doll that you're working on, a pot or bowl that the head will fit in, a towel, a spatula or wooden handled instrument, a cuticle pusher, your replacement eyes. These are Secret Garden by Dallas Doll Co. And I'm going to start by removing the head. The strings were short, so I went ahead and just cut it with a pair of scissors. And once you remove the head, you will notice that if you look inside, it's hollow, and you will see where the eye sockets are. They're kind of hard to see, but... And then you put it in your pot with the towel, like so. And then I will go get my 1.5 cups of boiling water and pour that into the head very carefully, trying not to spill any. Kind of difficult to do, just go slowly. And then after that, you will fold up the edges of the towel to keep the steam and heat in. Now we wait for 5 minutes. You will notice that the Dallas Doll Co. eyes I have here have sort of a pointed end that helps so you can push them in straight. Just like push them in. You'll see what I mean. But some eyes are shaped differently, and so depending on the shape of the eye kind of depends on which direction you put them in at. Okay, so after 5 minutes, pour your water out, and the head should be really, really hot to the touch and very soft and squishy. Put your towel on your lap, grab your wooden handled instrument, and this is where it gets a little bit challenging. You have to really feel where the eye socket is, and you want to push with the handle and just get that leverage. It takes some practice, but you just want to pop them out. And this is what it will look like afterwards. Then take your replacement eye, and since these are Dallas Doll Co. eyes, the way they're shaped, I'm going to just poke them in this direction. I like to use my towel so that my hands don't get hurt, and you'll kind of feel them pop into place, and that means that you have successfully put them in. They look a little bit funny at first, but don't worry, we will adjust them with our cuticle pusher. So take your cuticle pusher and just move them around. Try to adjust by touching the metal casing and not the acrylic. You want to avoid touching the acrylic as much as possible because you don't want to scratch the surface. So try and push the metal casing around with the cuticle pusher and use that as your way to rotate or adjust the eyes. And just keep looking at it and get it to where you feel like the eyes are straight and even, and they close and open properly, and you are done. And there you go. That's how you do an eye swap on an American Girl doll. Now, I know that I kind of make it look easy, and that's because I've done it a lot. Your very first time, just go slow and don't rush. Now, there are things that I do that maybe don't work for you. Everyone has their own little tricks. And it just takes time and practice for you to kind of figure out what works for you. But definitely I recommend going slow, and also maybe start with eyes that weren't super expensive. Definitely don't start with a doll that's super expensive or a pair of eyes that are super expensive. Like, don't start with some premium glass eyes. Definitely start with either, you know, some American Girl doll eyes that you got elsewhere or some acrylic eyes that you purchased online. I think these are $9 from DallasDollCo.com, but they're one of the more affordable options. Also, if you have put your eyes in and you rotated them and they still look kind of funky or uneven to you, just wait a minute, because a lot of times the vinyl will expand when it's hot, and then when it cools down it sort of settles in and shrinks in. And that so if it looks weird, even if the eyes are straight, then it's either because the vinyl hasn't cooled off enough yet and it hasn't shrunk into place. Also keep in mind that the molds are asymmetrical. So they purposely make the faces asymmetrical like real faces, because back in the day when the classic mold was first designed, Pleasant Rowland, they did their research and they discovered, hey, there's this thing called the uncanny valley that keeps coming back around. And when faces are too symmetrical, you run the risk of it looking creepy. So the faces are asymmetrical on purpose. So if you're looking at her and you're like, the eyes aren't perfectly straight or something looks off, like if you're a kind of a nitpicky perfectionist type person, then just know that they are supposed to not look perfect, because if they look perfect, then it's gonna run the risk of looking creepy. So they're supposed to be a little bit off. That's okay. That's on purpose. The mold itself is a little bit off. And also, a lot of times, if you just wait for the vinyl to cool down, it looks fine. I know when I first started working on the classic molds, it's more apparent in the classic molds, at least in my opinion. The eye sockets just expand, and you put the eye in and it's like, this eye is way too small, but then it just sort of like shrinks around it and it settles into place. So don't freak out. You're probably fine. Also, just keep in mind that after it's cooled off, you can still rotate the eyes. It's not too late. It will be a little more difficult, but you can still kind of adjust as needed. So I hope that that was super helpful to you guys. I know a lot of you have been asking me, like, we need videos about how to do the basics. Like, please just help us to know what are the basics of getting into custom. So I hope that this video helps. I'm gonna try and do wigs next, so stay tuned for that video. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Bye guys.